Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that will change the way you see attraction forever. A man doesn't become addicted to you because of how much you talk, how quickly you reply, or how much you give. No, he becomes addicted in the silence. It's the words you don't say, the pauses you allow, the mystery you create that drive him absolutely crazy. If you want him hooked on you like never before, then listen carefully, because I'm about to reveal the 6 silence rules that make him chase you, crave you, and never get enough of you. If you want him addicted to you like crazy, then you need to understand something powerful. Attraction isn't just about what you say, it's also about what you don't say. Silence is one of the most underrated yet magnetic tools you have. When used correctly, silence creates mystery, it fuels curiosity, and it makes someone crave your presence more than your words ever could. Too many people think love is about constantly giving, constantly talking, constantly filling the space with reassurance, but the truth is it's the gaps, the pauses, the moments of restraint that build tension and pull someone closer. If you want to make him hooked, if you want him to feel your absence as much as your presence, then you have to learn the art of silence through these 6 rules. The first rule of silence is never rush to respond. When he sends you a message, your instinct may be to reply instantly. You want to show you're available, you want to show you're excited, but here's the problem. Instant replies strip away the magic of anticipation. Think about it. When everything is easy to get, when everything is instantly available, it loses its value. A little delay, a little pause creates suspense. It shows him you have a life, that you are busy, that you are not sitting around waiting for his every word. Silence in those moments speaks louder than on any emoji or text. It whispers to him, I'm not desperate, I'm not chasing, you have to earn my attention. And that makes him lean forward, it makes him double text, it makes him wonder why he doesn't have all of your time. That curiosity, that hunger is the first stage of addiction. The second rule of silence is never explain yourself too much. Have you ever noticed how some people feel the need to justify everything? Sorry, I didn't text back, I was doing this and that, and then I got caught up, and then my phone died. The problem with over-explaining is that it removes mystery. It gives too much away. You don't need to explain why you're unavailable, you simply are. Silence in this case is about keeping the power of not revealing everything. A short, confident response beats a long justification every time. When you leave room for him to wonder, when you don't feed him every detail, his imagination starts working overtime. And imagination is where attraction multiplies. Silence here communicates self-assurance. It tells him you don't owe him a diary of your life. And that makes him respect you while craving more access to you. The third rule of silence is don't always fill the gaps in conversation. People who are nervous or insecure often feel uncomfortable when there's a pause. They rush to fill the silence to keep the conversation flowing, to avoid awkwardness. But the most magnetic people are the ones who can sit comfortably in silence. Why? Because it shows they don't need to entertain or impress constantly. It creates tension. It gives space for the other person to come forward, to open up, to work harder to keep your attention. When you're quiet and simply hold his gaze with a little smile, it drives him crazy. It makes him think, what is she thinking? What's on her mind? That silence is intoxicating because it makes him want to peel back your layer. And earn your words. The fourth rule of silence is use absence as a weapon. Too much availability kills desire. If you're always there, always saying yes, always dropping everything for him, he'll enjoy it, but he won't value it. Silence isn't just about not talking, it's about stepping back, it's about disappearing for a little while so he can feel your absence, it's about letting him miss you, letting him notice that the energy you bring into his life is unique and irreplaceable. When you're silent, when you take space, you allow him to reflect on what it feels like without you. That gap creates longing, and longing creates addiction. Absence makes your presence more powerful than any words ever could. The fifth rule of silence is don't chase when he pulls away. This is where most people lose the game. The moment he becomes distant, they panic. They flood him with texts. They demand explanations. They try to fix the situation with words. But the more you chase, the more he retreats. Silence is the answer. When he pulls back, you pull back too. When he becomes quiet, you match his energy. This silence communicates strength. It tells him, I am not going to beg for your attention. If you want me, you know where to find me. That silence is powerful because it puts the ball in his court. It forces him to decide if he values you enough to step up. And 9 times out of 10, when he realizes you're not chasing, he'll feel the fear of losing you. That fear wakes him up. It makes him addicted to winning you back. The 6th rule of silence is let your actions speak louder than your words. You don't need to constantly tell him how valuable you are, how special you are, or how much you deserve respect. Your silence combined with your standards says it for you. When you don't tolerate poor treatment, when you don't respond to disrespect, when you quietly step back instead of arguing or begging, you show him your worth without ever having to spell it out. Silence here is dignity. It is self-respect in action. It's saying, I know who I am and I don't need to shoo it about it. And nothing makes a man more addicted than a woman who carries herself with quiet confidence, who doesn't need validation to know her value. Think about it. Silence is not weakness, it's strength. It's not coldness, it's strategy. It's not playing games, it's setting boundaries. When you master these 6 silence rules, you shift the dynamic completely. You no longer hand over all your power in endless explanations, instant replies, or nervous chatter. Instead, you hold the cards. You create space. You spark curiosity. You trigger pursuit. Silence makes him wonder. Silence makes him work. Silence makes him addicted to the rare and precious moments when you choose to break it. And here's the truth. When someone becomes addicted, it's not to the noise, it's to the quiet intensity that leaves them restless, craving, and chasing more. Silence, when used with intention, makes your presence unforgettable. It makes you stand out in a world full of noise. It makes him see you not just as someone to talk to, but as someone he can't stop thinking about. Someone whose silence echoes louder than anyone else's words. When you begin to embody these silence rules, something remarkable happens. You shift from being predictable to being magnetic. Predictability kills excitement in relationships. If he always knows what you're going to say, when you're going to reply, and how you're going to react, then where's the thrill? Where's the fire? What silence does is it breaks patterns. It keeps him on his toes. It makes him lean in and think, I don't fully know what she's going to do next. That slight uncertainty is intoxicating. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being authentic enough to not spoon-feed him your every thought. And when you stop rushing to fill every gap, he learns that if he wants access to you, he has to earn it. Let's take a moment to understand why this works on such a deep level. Human beings are wired to value what they work for. We chase what feels scarce and take for granted what feels abundant. If you're always pouring words, explanations, and attention into him, he'll enjoy it for a while, but eventually it will start to feel ordinary. Silence creates scarcity. It makes every word you do say more valuable. It makes your presence feel like a gift rather than a given. And when something feels like a gift, it gets cherished. Think of it like perfume. If you walk into a room and spray it everywhere, people notice it for a second and then it fades into the background. But if you walk past and leave just a trace, just a subtle hint, people turn their heads and wonder where it came from. Silence is that trace. It's that subtle hint of mystery that lingers in his mind long after you're gone. It's not loud, it's not obvious, but it's unforgettable. Another reason silence is so powerful is because it forces him to invest. When you don't immediately give him everything, he has to step into the gap. If you don't always text back right away, he starts double texting. If you don't over-explain yourself, he starts asking questions. If you don't fill the conversation gaps, he starts working harder to impress you, to get you to open up. This shift is crucial. Suddenly, he's the one doing the chasing. He's the one feeling the uncertainty, and he's the one who begins to crave your attention like oxygen. And let's be clear, silence doesn't mean coldness. It's not about being rude or dismissive. It's about balance. It's about not over-giving. It's about creating enough space that he feels drawn in rather than smothered. The warmth is still there, the connection is still alive, but it's wrapped in mystery. That combination of warmth and restraint is what creates obsession. Too much warmth without restraint feels clingy. Too much restraint without warmth feels distant. Silence is the art of blending the two so perfectly that he never feels entirely sure he has you, and that's what keeps him coming back. Imagine this scenario. You're on a date and he asks you a question. Instead of immediately jumping in with a long, detailed answer, you pause, you smile, you let the silence stretch just enough that he leans in. That pause makes him hungry for your words. It tells him that what you say next matters. And when you finally do speak, the impact is multiplied. He's hanging on your words because you didn't just hand them to him casually. You made him wait. You made him work for it. And that waiting builds desire. Silence also has a way of amplifying your standards. When someone disrespects you or treats you poorly, the strongest statement isn't a long speech or a heated argument. It's silence. It's walking away without explanation. It's choosing not to engage in chaos. That silence communicates, I will not lower my energy to match yours. And that kind of self-respect is magnetic. He won't just notice it, he'll feel it. It will force him to rethink his behavior because deep down, silence in those moments feels like rejection, and rejection fuels pursuit. The truth is, silence is not about withholding love. It's about elevating your value. It's about showing through your actions that your time, your words, and your presence are not to be wasted. Think about how you feel when someone who doesn't talk much suddenly says something meaningful. It hits harder. Why? Because they don't speak all the time. Their silence makes their words rare, and rarity is priceless. That's the effect you create when you live by these rules. You become the woman whose words matter because they're not always freely given. Here's something few people realize. Silence is emotional discipline. It's knowing when not to react, when not to over-explain, when not to fall into the trap of chasing. It's having the strength to sit in discomfort and let someone wonder. That discipline is attractive because it shows emotional maturity. And emotional maturity is rare. When you don't jump to fill every space, you show that you're grounded, secure, and confident enough to let things breathe. And that, in turn, makes him see you as someone he doesn't want to lose. There will be moments when silence feels difficult. You'll want to break it. You'll want to send that text, explain that detail, or fill that pause. But remind yourself, silence is not about pushing him away. It's about drawing him closer. Every time you resist the urge to overshare or overgive, you're strengthening the tension that makes him addicted. It's that tension that keeps him awake at night, scrolling back through your conversations, replaying your last meeting in his mind, wondering what you're thinking. That mental replay is exactly what bonds him to you. Let's not forget, silence also tests him. It shows you his true intentions. If you pull back and he disappears completely, then he was never invested. But if you pull back and he chases harder, if your silence makes him realize your value, then you know he's serious. Silence reveals truth. It's not just a strategy to make him addicted. It's a filter to protect you from wasting your time. Because the right man won't be scared off by your silence. He'll be captivated by it. He'll see it as a challenge, and challenges create desire. Another beautiful part of silence is that it creates space for him to express himself. When you stop filling every moment, you give him room to step forward, to share, to open up. And in doing so, you create balance. Instead of you doing all the emotional labor, he begins to invest emotionally too. Silence teaches him that if he wants closeness, he has to meet you halfway. And when he does, the connection deepens naturally. Think about every great story, every great romance. It's not the words alone that make it powerful. It's the pauses, the tension, the unspoken energy. The stolen glances, the moments where nothing is said but everything is felt, that's what sigh. Lens gives you. It's not emptiness, it's fullness. It's not lack, it's presence. It's not weak, it's strong. And when you weave it into how you interact with him, you stop being the person who is easily read, easily accessed, easily forgotten. You become the woman who stays in his mind, who lives in his imagination, who makes him addicted without even trying. Because at the end of the day, silence is not just the absence of words, it's the presence of power. It's the art of knowing that sometimes the loudest statement is the one you don't make. And when you carry that truth into your connection with him, you transform the dynamic completely. You become the one he can't stop thinking about, the one he can't quite figure out, the one he wants more and more of but can never fully grasp. And that is exactly how addiction begins. And when you begin to notice the effect silence has, you start to understand why it's such a rare and powerful form of communication. People are so used to noise, endless chatter, instant replies, over-explanations, that silence feels unusual, almost unsettling. But that's exactly why it works. It interrupts the usual pattern. It forces someone to stop, to think, to feel. And in a world full of noise, the person who knows how to use silence stands out like a flame in the dark. Think of it when you're texting. The moment you don't reply immediately, his mind starts racing. He starts asking himself questions. Did she lose interest? Is she busy? Is she with someone else? Why isn't she answering? That pause is not just empty space. It's a powerful trigger. It sparks curiosity. It activates his imagination, and it makes him attach meaning to your absence. And when he finally gets your reply, it feels more valuable, like a reward he had to wait for. Without you saying a single word, your silence has already created desire. Now imagine being in the midday of a disagreement. Most people in arguments rush to defend themselves, to prove a point, to win the battle with words, but silence is a weapon that no argument can defeat. When you don't respond to unnecessary drama, when you choose not to fight over petty things, your silence shows strength. It sends a message that says, I will not waste my energy here. That quiet confidence is far more powerful than 1,000 explanations. And the moment he realizes he can't shake you with chaos, he begins to respect you more deeply. There's another layer to this. Silence allows him to crave your energy beyond the surface level. Words can sometimes dilute emotions because they're easy to throw around. But when you hold back, when you let him sit in the space of not knowing, he starts to attach deeper value to the time you do spend together. That's when a look, a smile, or even the sound of your laughter becomes addictive. Because it's not always there, because it's not given on demand, because he knows it's something he has to earn. Silence also builds your inner strength. When you practice restraint, you learn self-control. You train yourself not to react from insecurity, not to cling out of fear, not to overcompensate to prove your worth. You teach yourself to sit in the discomfort of space and trust that if he values you, he will come closer. That kind of patience is magnetic. It makes you appear untouchable because you're not desperate for validation. And the more untouchable you appear, the more he feels he has to work to keep you. Think about the women who make men lose their minds, the ones men can't seem to forget. It's rarely because they talked the most, texted the most, or gave the most. It's because they knew when to say less. They left a trail of curiosity. They gave just enough to create connection, but held back enough to create longing. They understood that silence wasn't distance. It was allure, and allure is what makes someone unforgettable. Social media is another arena where silence works wonders. You don't have to post ever. A detail of your life. You don't have to constantly broadcast your feelings. Sometimes the most magnetic thing you can do is go quiet for a while. That silence makes him wonder what you're doing, who you're with, how you're spending your time. It shifts the attention back to you without you even trying. When you reappear, even subtly, the impact is 10 times stronger because the silence built anticipation. But perhaps the greatest power of silence is that it forces him to feel his emotions more deeply. When you're not there constantly filling the space, he feels your absence. He notices the difference between his world with you and his world without you. That contrast is addictive. It makes him realize that your energy, your presence, your essence is not something he can easily replace. And the moment a man realizes that, he becomes hooked. Silence doesn't just create desire, it creates respect. When you don't beg, when you don't chase, when you don't over-explain, you teach him how to treat you. You teach him that your time and your attention are privileges, not entitlements. You teach him that if he wants to be in your life, he has to step up, he has to invest, he has to earn it. That respect is the foundation of true attraction. Without it, desire fades. With it, desire grows into obsession. Now imagine being in a room with him, and instead of constantly talking, you let the moment breathe. You lean back. You let him wonder what's on your mind. That unspoken energy is electric. It makes him lean in closer. It makes him search your face for clues. It makes him want to decode you. That's the beauty of silence. It doesn't just make him listen to your words. It makes him pay attention to your presence. He becomes addicted not just to what you say, but to who you are in the quiet moments. And the more you practice silence, the more confident you become in yourself. You realize you don't need to explain, justify, or chase. You realize you don't need to fill every gap with words to prove your worth. Your silence becomes a reflection of your strength, your confidence, your self-assurance, and that confidence is the most magnetic quality you can possess. It makes him see you as rare, as valuable, as the kind of woman he cannot afford to lose. Silence is not about manipulation, it's about alignment. It's about aligning your actions with your value. It's about creating space for him to show up instead of you doing all the work. It's about allowing desire to grow naturally rather than smothering it with constant availability. It's about shifting the dynamic so that he becomes the pursuer, he becomes the one chasing, he becomes the one who feels addicted to winning more of you. When you learn to master silence, you stop fearing it. Instead of seeing it as emptiness, you see it as a powerful tool that makes connection deeper, attraction stronger, and respect unshakable. You realize that silence isn't the absence of love, it's the proof of it. Because only someone who truly knows their worth can sit in silence and still radiate power. And when you embody that, you don't just capture his attention, you hold it, you own it, you make it impossible for him to ever get enough of you. Because silence is more than a tactic, it becomes a presence you carry into every part of your life. It's not just about how you interact with him, it's about the energy you bring into every room you enter. When you know the value of silence, you radiate a quiet confidence that makes people stop and pay attention. You don't need to shout to be noticed. You don't need to fight for space. You command it simply by existing in it. And that quiet authority is intoxicating because it shows that your sense of worth comes from within, not from external validation. Think about how rare that is. Most people are desperate to be heard, desperate to fill the silence with words to prove they belong. But when you resist that urge, when you choose to say less, please lean in. They want to know what's behind that calm exterior, what's behind that composed smile. They feel like they've stumbled upon someone different, someone who doesn't play by the usual rules. That rarity is what creates fascination, and fascination is the seed of addiction. Now let's take this into the dynamic of daily life with him. Imagine he calls you late at night expecting you to always pick up. But this time you don't. You let it ring, and instead of scrambling with apologies the next day, you keep it calm. That silence tells him something words never could. You are not always available on demand. You have your own rhythm, your own priorities, your own life. And that reality stirs something inside him. Suddenly, he's reminded that your world doesn't revolve around him. And that realization sparks a deeper craving to be part of your world more consistently. Or think about when he sends you a playful message, expecting you to volley back instantly with the same energy. Instead, you let a few hours pass. By the time you reply, he's already replayed the conversation in his mind a dozen times, wondering if he said the right thing, wondering if you laughed, wondering what you thought. That space in between his message and your response is where his mind starts working overtime. And that's where attraction grows, not in the constant exchange, but in the quiet moments of waiting and wondering. Silence is also powerful when you're face to face. Sometimes, instead of answering a question directly, you tilt your head, smile slightly, and let your eyes do the talking. That pause, that silence, makes the moment intimate in a way words never could. It makes him lean closer, it makes his heart race, it makes the energy between you electric. People forget that silence isn't empty, it's full of meaning, full of presence, full of tension. And tension is the foundation of desire. It's not just about making him chase, it's about deepening the connection. Silence allows you to listen more, to observe more, to feel more. When you're not always rushing to fill the air, you start to notice his gestures, his tone, the little details he shares. That attentiveness makes him feel seen, and nothing makes someone more addicted than feeling deeply understood. Ironically, it's your silence that gives you the power to connect more profoundly, because you're not caught up in proving yourself with endless words, you're simply being. There's also an undeniable elegance to silence. It's the grace of restraint, the beauty of not overexposing yourself too quickly. Think of a wrapped gift. The anticipation builds because it's hidden, because you can't see it all at once. The unwrapping is exciting precisely because of the mystery. You are that gift. If you reveal everything too soon, the excitement fades. But if you reveal slowly, if you let the silence hold some of your mystery, he stays captivated. He becomes addicted not just to what he knows about you, but to what he doesn't know yet. And silence is not about absence of passion, it's about heightening it. Think of music. The pauses between the notes are what make the melody powerful. Without the pauses, it's just noise. In the same way, your silence makes the moments of laughter, of intimacy, of vulnerability more powerful, because they are framed by the quiet. They are not diluted, they are amplified. He remembers them more vividly because they stand out against the backdrop of your restraint. Sometimes silence is also about boundaries. When he crosses a line, when he tests you, when he tries to see how far he can go, your silence is the strongest answer. Not a lecture, not an argument, not a long explanation, just withdrawal. That silence speaks volumes. It tells him you know your worth and that you will not waste energy explaining it. It forces him to confront his actions and decide whether he is willing to rise to your standard. That moment of silence can be the turning point where he realizes he has everything to lose if he doesn't change. And in those moments, silence makes him feel something he doesn't want to feel, the possibility of losing you. That fear is powerful. It makes him value you more. It makes him fight harder. It makes him addicted to keeping your presence in his life. Without you saying a single word, your silence becomes the mirror that shows him the reality of his choices. And once he sees that reflection, he can't unsee it. It's important to recognize that silence is not just about what you withhold, but about what you allow him to give. When you step back, when you leave space, you give him the opportunity to invest, to show up, to initiate, to pursue. If you are always filling the silence, always chasing, always explaining, you rob him of the chance to prove himself. But when you stay quiet, when you lean back, when you allow the silence to stretch, he feels compelled to step forward. That shift is where real attraction is built, when he feels like he's working for you, when he feels like he has something to prove, when he feels like your silence is daring him to step into the gap. This is how silence transforms the dynamic. It flips the script. It makes him the one thinking, what is she feeling? What does she want? How do I make her open up to me? And once a man is asking those questions, once he is actively trying to earn your words, your time, your presence, he is no longer casual. He is invested. An investment is the pathway to addiction. So every time you're tempted to over-explain, remember that your silence already says enough. Every time you feel the urge to chase, remember that your silence is what makes him pursue. Every time you want to fill the space, remember that your silence is what creates tension. And every time you think silence is weakness, remember that it is the language of strength. The woman who knows how to use silence is the woman who holds the power. And the power is what makes her unforgettable,